Hello!
Hello, AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Sigmar!
And in today's video, we're looking at Kill Team and Deadzone and asking which is best.
Which is best indeed?
Well, it depends what you're looking for, really.
It kind of does, but we figured we'd try. We've played both, and we figured we'd just give our pros and cons of both boxes and try and compare them as best we can and come up with a solution or an answer to that question.
Absolutely. I mean, many of you who watch us are GW fans, so probably you're going to be leaning towards Kill Team, and you may not know much about Mantic and Deadzone. So, and I think that does have a sort of say in what you think is best, because if you've got a load of GW models, then probably you're going to lean towards Kill Team.
Possibly, yeah.
Because it uses a rule set that you're sort of familiar with and using models that you're familiar with. But let's try and look at them from the perspective of somebody who's entirely new.
Yeah.
These are the two starter sets, and we've got a two-player starter set for Deadzone and a Kill Team starter set which has just come out from GW, which is also two-player, yes. Yep. This one retails at £65. That's the recommended retail price. You'll probably pick it up cheaper from second-hand sellers, from secondary sellers. And this is Deadzone, and this is £90. And again, that's the RRP, and you'll probably find it cheaper elsewhere. I think Will & Game stocks both. We're big fans of Will & Game, so check them out for either product. We'll put links in the description below. Yeah, so you do get a little bit more for your money in this one. It is more money, but I think you do get a little bit more for your money, but they do kind of do the same thing.
Yeah. They both give you a starting point for two people to get together. So either you and a mate, you've decided, actually, let's try some of this tabletop game and malarkey. What do we go for? Or maybe you're a dad like us and your son's finally said those magical words, I'd like to get into tabletop wargaming. And now you're like, which one do I get? Magical
words or just cursed words. I've absolutely no idea what tabletop gaming is, and I don't know what to do. So here we go. We're going to try and guide you through that. They both take up a reasonably small amount of real estate on the table. Yep. This one is basically 2 foot by 2 foot square, and this one is a little bit longer but a little bit narrower, so it's 22 inches by 30 inches. So they both come with sheets in the box to play, and that, I think, stands against both of them. Actually, I don't really like paperboards, and it does mean you are, if you're going to play it seriously, you're going to want something a bit tougher, a bit more robust, either a neoprene mat or a cardboard one that Games Workshop do, because wear and tear, they're just going to rip eventually.
And even when they first come out of the box, the folds are quite sharp on them. It means when you flatten out, it doesn't stay quite flat, and your models maybe not stable on them. So you might even actually want to lay the mats out in advance and put some heavy books on them. In either case, it's just a little bit of a faff. It's not the best experience straight away. So both games have a full set of rules included in them, plus a little introductory set of rules as well to help get you acclimatised to how all of the game plays and some missions, that kind of thing.
If you've never played either game before, you can go from 0 to 60 with either of these boxes. This one, Deadzone, contains, I think, 23 models, so 2 teams, roughly 12 each, but obviously not quite. But it's also got enough terrain to lay out a complete tabletop of terrain and probably last you for as long as you play Deadzone. They do other terrain sets, but probably it's enough to last you the whole of your Deadzone life.
Yep. Kill Team has 22 models in it, so it's about the same size model count-wise, but it has less terrain. It doesn't have any of the multi-level stuff that Deadzone does, so you will be able to use this to start with. You are going to have to buy more terrain for this at a later date.
Yeah, this one gives you enough terrain to play the introduction games, which is like just teaching you the rules. But if you actually want to play a proper game, because the whole point of Kill Team and most skirmish games is that you have lots of scenery, it's all very crowded, and there just isn't enough in Kill Team, so you're going to need to buy some more. Now you could actually go and buy some Deadzone scenery, because it's all functional and it's probably a little bit cheaper than Games Workshop's, but it isn't as attractive, and I think that's probably the biggest pro versus con, or most obvious pro versus con of the two boxes, is the look of them. I mean, Pete in particular is a huge fan of the GW aesthetic. I am to a lesser extent, and I would agree with Pete that Games Workshop are the pinnacle of model look and feel.
Yeah, I think they're definitely industry leaders at the minute in that area. They put a lot into it, and they do say that they are a miniatures game first and a games company sort of.
Well, I've only heard other people saying that. I've never heard them say that. But
I think it might have been one of the CEOs years ago that said that. But I do think that does apply to GW.
They do the R&D into improving that process all the way along the line. I think, which is not to say these models are bad. It's just a comparison. This is like your Sainsbury's lasagna, and this is taste the difference.
M&S brand, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So I think, and these models just aren't as detailed. Now I think some of the Ratmen are quite old models. These have some Ratmen, some sort of human soldiers, sort of Starship Trooper type, and I think they're quite old models from what I've heard on the grapevine.
Yeah. Whereas these are absolutely brand spanking. Well, they're about a year old, not even a year old, but they are brand spanking new pretty much for the new re-release Kill Team that came out last year. So they're very up to date and very highly detailed, which can have some downsides to it when you come to painting them. But
these actually, the Krieg in this box weren't particularly difficult to paint. These ones, I find the details a little bit lacking on some of them. So it actually, in a strange way, actually makes it harder to paint because you're not quite sure where the trousers end and the belt starts.
Yeah, you've got to guess with some of those
that kind of thing. So it is a little bit off-putting. However, I think on the flip side of that, if you just want to do a quick paint job, then the Deadzone models are better because it's just like trousers, top, gun.
You haven't got to worry too much about it also.
So there's pros and cons there.
Yeah.
Kill Team models, I don't know whether you agree with this, Pete, because I actually gave them to you to do, but I don't think that Kill Team assembly is in any way starter set worthy.
They were definitely, the Krieg models, the humans in this set, were definitely much fiddlier than the Orcs. The Orcs being bigger, bulkier models in general, they were easier to assemble than the Guard, but overall, these ones were definitely a lot tougher than those ones.
Yeah, these ones weren't a walk in the park. Well, there's two reasons why. One is that they've got some couple of resin models in them, and that means you need super glue. So these are all assembled with polystyrene cement. These you need some super glue, which if you're a keen modeler and you play game a lot, you've got super glue lying around. It's not a problem. But it is some people don't like working with resin. It's a bit confusing if you're a newcomer. Well, why doesn't you're trying to use your plastic glue and suddenly they don't stick together. So you do need super glue for those. And because of the way these are designed, they can be a bit fiddly to put on the arms because it's just like basically two flat armpits, and you stick the arms on where they're holding the gun, and that can be quite fiddly. So there's something to be said for having monopose models. On balance, these are probably easier. Certainly for beginners, these are easier to
I think
assemble.
Overall, the only problem that I had with assembling the Space Ratmen in this was the fact that there weren't very many explicit instructions, but there were some parts that only went together. Yeah. So it wasn't clear that I had to use one backpack with a certain body, and that wasn't quite so obvious. Whereas GW stuff, it's the IKEA furniture of plastic mini assembly.
They used to do quite terrible instructions, GW, but they've definitely upped their instruction game. And I have to say, I would agree, because I did the humans, and the instructions were quite poor. It was quite hard to tell.
You could almost just guess, like, well, I need legs and a body and arms and a head, and then it's like, well, the rest is up to you.
Yeah, but there's like two groups of men, one has backpacks, one doesn't, but it's not obvious which one is which. So I think that these could do with, this one could have done with better instructions. The terrain is quite interesting. This terrain I think is pretty much all fixed. I'm not sure in this box that it requires any assembly.
No, I think it just comes off.
You just cut it off and put it down. This, in theory, and it's great, is all freeform. So it comes in like flat pieces because this game all bases off cubes. So you can make different kind of cube-ish arrangements of your terrain, and you can take it all down when you're finished and put it all back in a different configuration the next time, which is great, except it's a lot quicker to say you can put it in a new configuration next time than it is to take it all apart, fix it all the way together and put it in the new configuration. And if you don't glue it together, some of the joints I found, I'm not the best at assembly, but I found some of the joints a bit wobbly, and so you end up in the middle of the game falling over. So I think if you're going to play with it in any seriousness, you're going to end up fixing a configuration, which is probably why you end up buying extra terrain.
Yeah. And one thing that we did mention a little earlier is that this comes in like a cube form. All the terrain is in cubes, and the mat itself has a cube layout on it. Or
it's all squares, and then you stand the terrain in a square, and I think everything happens in a square. And when you move 3 squares. Yeah. And so that's really quite neat, I think. And if you have 2 bits of terrain on top of each other, they're cubes, so you can move 2, you can move 1, 2 up into the cube. That's quite clever. Yeah. The problem with that is, it means whatever you have to have a mat or a playing surface that has the cubes marked on it, because if you don't, you can't really easily play.
Also, when you play a lot of the, when you put a lot of the elements out on the board, you have to randomly assign different squares for stuff to appear.
That's a very good point.
And I can't, like, tokens and
the objectives
and things like that, you have to assign where they land in different zones. So you really need that grid there.
Yeah, you can't. To be honest, maybe you could try and recreate it on your standard gaming map, but it'd be really hard.
Yeah.
And you probably, unless you drew it on, you'd be knocking it out all over the place all the time. So I just think I don't think that would work.
No, probably not. So you do need a board with a grid on it.
Yeah. Whereas GW, any gaming mat that you've got, or even just on the bare surface of your table, if you just fancy a sort of desert wood look, you could just play straight on it. So that's a pro for Kill Team.
Yeah.
On a slight flip side, the mat for Deadzone has two sides. It has your standard gaming side.
I think all mats have two sides.
Well, yes, that's true. It has printed on two sides. Well, this is printed on two sides as well, but it's different but the same.
Yeah.
This one has a starter set cut down version that you can flip, so you can play them out on that side, and it actually tells you where to put the models and how to play and what you do.
And it's a much smaller, it's like 6x6 rather than the regular 8x8 grid, and you have all around the edges of that side, you've got lots of the rules, so you've got the stats for the little cut down selection of models that you have in that little scenario, and the rules for what their weapons do and all that kind of stuff.
It's really quite a neat way of teaching you to play. We played a couple of games of that in an evening,
Yes.
and I felt like we had a really good understanding just on those couple of games of how this game worked.
Yeah.
And obviously there are more rules that build upon that, but you've got your core straight away.
The Kill Team one does have a set of cut down mission types where you have only a selected set of models, and it gives you the layout, but it doesn't give you all the rules in one easy to spot place. You still go hunting around for all those. So that is one downside of Kill Team. It requires a lot more flicking through books.
Absolutely, that's a general comment about GW games. They do enjoy bringing out supplements and extra books for you to play, and it's definitely true of Kill Team. If you want to play it in a more serious fashion, expanding from the starter set, you do find yourself with 2 or 3 books to leaf through, and it gets that does become a bit of a pain. On the subject of which, Deadzone, in the box, you get a rule book. I've got them out here. You've got a rule book, and you've got force lists, and this has a list for all the armies available in the game, and it comes in this box. So for your £90 you get all the terrain you need, a couple of armies, and then all the other armies. So all of these games rely on you buying extra models to supplement your armies, and buying new armies that you like the look of and all that kind of thing. But all the rules are in here for those, and that is not the case of the Kill Team set, or indeed any Games Workshop product in the world.
Pretty much ever.
They don't. So you're always going to be looking at, if you want to play a different type of army, you're always going to have to buy extra books for GW, but you don't for Deadzone. Yeah,
that is a really good thing for Deadzone. You can just buy the box, and then you can just go and buy any of the other sets off of any reseller website or anywhere like that, and you don't have to go out and buy more stuff. Whereas with Kill Team, if you want to get one of the new armies that's come out or something like that, you're going to have to buy at least one extra book for it.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, GW did release a compendium book which did contain most of the different armies that you would want to field within Kill Team and Kill Team choices for that. So there is a one book to rule them all option for GW.
Yes, I think GW Kill Team is kind of like, so their core game is Warhammer 40,000, and that has, people have masses of armies for that. Lots of you watching probably do, and so Kill Team is almost to supplement that rather than an actual game itself. Whereas Deadzone is kind of a game on its own, which is why you get all the stuff in it. So yes, to facilitate playing with multiple armies, then Games Workshop brought out this compendium, and then they bring out new specific kill teams that are specific, like there's the Krieg and the Orcs, a specific type of Orcs, a specific type of human fighter, and they get their own special rules. And they've now, well, there's 2 of those. There's a new Tau and Sisters Battle. On Chownath, and there's a new one coming, which is the Eldar Chaos, is it? Or have I made that bit out?
That's the 40k box. It's not a Kill Team one, but there's that as well coming along. So there's going to be an Eldar Kill Team at some point, I think. So
GW are bringing out these new Kill Teams, and the new Kill Teams have much more fleshed out rules than the books in the compendium. So the compendium is literally just a book of sort of 10 or 15 Kill Teams, and it's just fairly simple, fairly rules light, whereas the Kill Teams, I think GW have kind of drilled down, got into all the granular detail of it, and it's very exciting to look at, but actually we found to play is much more complicated. And I quite like Deadzone. It's fairly simple, and I actually, when we played that game of Deadzone, I thought, oh, this game is really, really simple compared with Kill Team, but that's because Pete and I have been trying to play with the full suite of rules with everything you need, all the bells and whistles.
Campaign settings, the most complex kill teams out there.
And that really blew our mind. But when after playing this, we played a simple game of Kill Team, which from the compendium with just fairly simple kill teams. We cut out some of the rules, like the equipment rules and things like that. All these extra. GW love little bolt-ons.
They love that.
So they start off with a very simple core rules in the middle, and then bolt on a load of stuff until it becomes unrecognisable. And we stripped it all back and played almost just the core rules, and we actually had a really fun, fairly quick,
Yeah.
easy to understand game. So it is there, but it's just something to be aware of, especially if you're new to gaming. Don't try and build it up too fast because you'll just blow your mind, I think.
It's a bit like, you know, you see those little Vespa mopeds that have about 1 million wing mirrors on them. That's what GW do. They take the regular moped and then they stick on 100 different mirrors on the sides. And if you got rid of them all, you'd still be able to see behind you, and you would actually find it easier to turn. So that's a big difference for Kill Team. And like you say, GW, they love to have all their little bolt-ons, and it when you read it, it sounds great. You get all these little extra rules and things that you can do, and it sounds fantastic. But for the likes of us, at least, there's just so much paperwork.
The more rules there are, the more things there are to forget or to play wrong.
Yeah.
And that is always an issue with any game.
Yeah, and with Deadzone, there's a lot less in the way of special rules for each army. There's a lot less special rules for the weapons. There's a lot of special rules in general. And that just helps the game.
They don't exist. They do exist, but they don't. They also interact in a different way, and we'll perhaps talk about that in a minute. But they're just not as complicated as a full-on GW.
Yeah.
One thing I will say though that Kill Team does have going for it is that they've done away with points values.
Yeah.
So when you pick your Kill Team, it basically says you can have 10 models from this list, and 5 of them can be these guys, and the other 5 have to be.
And you can have either this one or this one, or this one and this one, or this one and this one.
It's fair, and it's pretty simple. There's occasional misread, but it's pretty simple to work out what you need.
Yeah.
And this game has points value. So each model has a points value, and you say, well, I'm going to pay 200 points. And then you have to go away and count how many models you've got, work out what points they are, and that can be a bit of a headache if you don't want to do it. It's just GW used to do things that way, and they don't anymore. And I think that is a benefit of Kill Team, is that you can very easily pick what models you're in your Kill Team, at least. Just starts to get a bit more complicated after that.
Yes, when I was creating our army ready for the Deadzone game, it actually became a bit of a pain having to flick back and forth through the book going, what's this model, what weapon has it got? Oh, well, that's this, so that has 12 points, but this one's got this thing, so is that a 6-point model? Do I make that this other type of model, which is 10 points? And you can't have 3 of these unless you've got some of those first, and it was just...
And I mean, some people love that granularity and love that mental conundrum before the game.
Yeah.
But I don't.
No.
So in that respect, Kill Team we find better.
I would say that Deadzone's point system is nowhere near as bad as GW's main games, 40k and AOS and stuff like that. It's still much simpler, but it's not as simple as Kill Team, which is basically, here's a list of 10 models, you can have 9 of them or whatever that might be.
Yeah, and it was worth commenting at this point, for both of them, if you want to play any extended games, you will need more models.
Yeah.
Particularly Kill Team, because Kill Team, basically, when you're playing campaign games, you have 20 models in your Kill Team, and you pick from that 20 each time you play, and you only get 10 of each in the box, so you're going to have.
You also don't get the option to build all of the models out of the box either.
Yeah, they have different configurations, and you can't build them all. Deadzone, I think you probably could play small point games, relatively small point games forever if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But if you want to play campaigns, you can recruit new fighters, and fighters die and things. So I think you probably will want to supplement your models. Certainly Deadzone has the opportunity to have, I'll say star players, it's the wrong word, but they have
special characters,
things, which I don't think Kill Team has in the same way.
Kill Team doesn't really have standout special characters or anything.
Give it time, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, GW will. But yeah, they just have your standard troops, and they obviously have a leader of some kind, but it's not in the same way that Deadzone has their dramatic personas.
No. Okay, well, let's drill down into the rules a little bit, because I think the games, although they're very similar in concept, they're quite different in the way the rules work.
Yeah.
And I think this is where Mantic has it for me.
Could be. I mean, they're both alternate activation systems, so unlike games like 40k and AOS, Age of Sigmar, or even I think a lot of other games that aren't GW specific, they have one person activates all of their army first and does everything, and then your opponent, goes and makes a cup of tea, has some biscuits, reads the news, whatever, and then they come back for their turn, and then you can go off and have a massage, get a pedicure, order a meal, that kind of thing, and it's not that bad, obviously, but in these games, it's alternate activation, so I'd move a model and shoot with it, and then Robin would do the same.
So everybody stays more engaged. I mean, it's a much more modern way. Most modern games play that way, and they both of these play this way. So you're always involved in the game. You don't switch off while your opponent moves all his models or whatever, which is great for both of them. So dice wise, My game uses D8s.
Oh, well, my game uses D6s.
And therefore mine's better because D8s are greater than D6s.
Oh, yeah. But I can find D6s anywhere. You can literally just, pick up a book and there's just D6 just go scattering away from underneath it.
Maybe in your house. That is true. D6 you can play with any number of D6s.
Yeah.
Well, not play with any number, but D6s are everywhere. You're right. Yeah. They're ubiquitous. You probably a D6 is a 6-sided dice in case you're not used to this.
And D8 is an 8-sided dice.
But this has D8s, and D8s are the nicest shape and more fun.
I think so. I think also this does have some D6 in it, doesn't it? Because it has some command dice, which we'll come on to. But they're D6, but they're proprietary symbols and stuff like that.
Which I'm not normally a fan of proprietary symbols, but I'm coming around to them, I think. And I quite like. We might as well talk about that as we mentioned it. This has a little command system where you basically throw some dice at the beginning of each turn, and it means you get a very small number of special things you can do that turn, which is quite a nice way of doing it, and it's not too complicated.
And everybody gets the same, so you're rolling on the same table. It's not like each person has their own specific table and you know yours, but your opponent has a different one. You might know what they're doing. You all have the same thing, so you know if he's rolled.
One of the things I prefer, another reason why I prefer Deadzone is that you might have a different combination of the effects, but all the effects of everybody's are the same. Nobody's got a special. You don't suddenly go, oh, well, actually, my army can call down a missile strike on you now. And you're like, what? Or when your orcs just ran through the terrain.
I've got a special where I can just run through buildings.
Yeah, and also, and none of it's hidden. So again, the kill team has cards which has you're kind of hidden. You don't know what's coming, and it's like, I've got this special tactic. Haha. A, I normally forget to use them because they're hidden, so I've put them up to one side.
Very
B,
well hidden.
It's a bit of a rude surprise sometimes. And no, not all rude surprises are good.
No.
So that is, again, for me, is why Deadzone, it just edges kill team a little bit.
One of the good things about Deadzone, though, is that you always need the same score when you're rolling your dice, and you generally start off by rolling the same number of dice. But you might end up rolling more because you've got certain special rules or special weapons.
So fighters of the same type will always roll the same number of dice, or be able to shoot the same distance or whatever. And so that's always the same. So it's very easy to remember. And as Pete said, there might be something that varies the number of dice that you roll, but you always need the same number. So you sort of say, I'm going to roll attack with these, I'm going to roll my 3 dice, I need 5 or more. And I'm always going to need 5 or more, whatever I'm doing. Now, if I happen to try and do a really difficult shot, like through some terrain or something, then I won't be allowed to roll 3 dice, I'll only be allowed to roll 1, and I'll still need to get a 5. And obviously I've got much less chance of getting a 5 if I'm only rolling 1 dice. And that just makes it so much easier to remember what you need. Games Workshop games, it's like, well, I've got +1 for this, +1 for that, -1 for that, +1 for this. So that means so instead of using 3s normally, I've got now I need 2s. But no, because it's raining today, so I get 1 less modifier. So now I've got to change it, and that's for me what Kill Team feels like.
Yeah, I mean, and there aren't as many dice modifiers to change the score you need in the game itself, but there are a lot of extra things that you need to pay attention to, like cover and who you can see and stuff like that. Also, especially when it comes to the kill teams in these starter boxes, but in general in all the kill teams, you're rolling different numbers of dice. So about this person, he rolls 3 dice for his attack and he needs 3s or more, but this person over here, he rolls 5 dice and he needs 5 or more, or this person might even have multiple options of dice that they can roll for their attack. Do I want to roll 3 dice and have 3 or more to hit, or do I want to roll 6 dice and have 5 or more to hit? And there's none of that. A little
bit of that in here,
but not
they
bad,
tend to have different, like one might make your armour worse, so you roll less dice to save, that kind of thing. But it's always, it never changes the score. It always only ever changes the number of dice, and I actually really like that in a game. And Deadzone has one even better dice roll that Kill Team doesn't have.
Yes, it does.
And it has exploding D8s.
Exploding D8s!
Which I think is the best rule I've encountered in a long time in games. All it means is that if you roll an 8, you can roll that dice again.
Or you roll an extra dice, whichever way.
And if you get another, and it still counts as a success, and you roll again. If you get another 8, you can roll it again. And you get another 8, you can roll it again. And that just makes rolling 8s just have a lot of fun. It even means your opponent enjoys you rolling extra 8s, because it's just something nice.
Gets silly.
It's just something nice about you watching your opponent roll 8s and
just keep rolling more dice and more dice and more dice.
Basically winning over probability.
Yeah. Now, Kill Team does have a little special rule where when you roll 6s, they generally count as something a bit better. But GW have done the usual thing again, whereas it means better in different ways in different situations.
Yeah, and you can make it unbetter by if you roll
by using 2 regular saves and stuff like that.
But whereas the exploding D8s is just very simple. It's like I've got 2 hits, or if one of them's an 8, I'm going to rewrite it. Oh, now I've got 3 hits.
Yeah. Or oh, that's an 8. I'll roll again. I've got 4 hits, and it works. It's quicker. It's easier. Don't get me wrong. I like the kill team mechanics for how you shoot and how combat works in general. I like the idea that you both roll off, and then you take turns in close combat on how you want to apply dice, and that's the same in Deadzone as well. And I like the way in shooting they cancel each other out and things like that. But I just think the Deadzone system's a bit more fun.
I think so, and a bit more intuitive, I think, at the end of the day. You could explain it once, or maybe twice, and then you've got it. Yeah,
because you've got your character's stat, and it's like they have a ranged attack value of 5+, and they have a hand-to-hand combat value of 4+, or whatever, and that's the value you need. You don't ever have to look any further than that.
Mechanistically, one other interesting thing is that you get a fancy little range ruler, and I don't.
Yes, so in both games, they're set in a world where it's very close quarters fighting. Not that close. But obviously everybody has all these high-powered, super-duper futuristic weapons, and they're all standing about 20 yards apart once you scale it down. In Kill Team, most shooting doesn't need range rulers at all. If you can see it, you can shoot it, but there are some...
I do like that, actually. That's a really good change to the game.
It does help.
Deadzone, it does have some range, but it's not. You don't never measure it. You just literally count. I can fire four hexes, and you just count out 4... Not hexes, squares. You just count out 4 squares or cubes, and you can shoot them. And I really like that.
Yeah.
And for movement, it's the same. Everybody has a movement rate. You can either like move 1 or run 2, or move 2 and run 3.
Yeah.
And again, you just move the squares, which I think is really good. Kill Team doesn't have that. It does have the little range ruler. I kind of try to lead Pete into a trap there, because I know the range ruler is okay.
It's okay. It can be a bit of a faff, and it makes reading some of the rules in the book sound like a arithmetic equation.
Yeah.
Like this person can move 3 circles, and if they run, they can add an extra triangle, and the shapes actually are related to the distance. They've got rid of the numbers, and they've just said this distance is circle and this distance is square. So
and it's fine, it makes sense, but it does make the rules hard to read in the abstract.
Yeah,
it does make sense, but I do prefer the non-use of measuring things. In Deadzone.
Deadzone does have, just like Kill Team, it does have some line of sight, but it is mostly a case of if you can see them, you can shoot them. If you can see all of them, you get extra dice to hit them.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then you don't, and that keeps it nice and simple.
You mentioned the word line of sight there. This is kind of a modified true line of sight. Basically, you kind of get down and look, which can be a bit of a pain, especially as you get old. Getting down there and got dodgy eyes.
There's a sharp piece that sticks out, and
it's not always that easy, but it seems to work for the game we had. Kill Team, I still don't understand the line of sight rules. Now I think that's partly me being obtusely stupid, but I really struggle every time we play. I'm like, so can I see him?
Yeah.
Can I shoot? I know people brighter than me have got it, but I struggle with it.
It still is a bit of a faff. Again, Deadzone is simpler, it's faster. Kill Team, I think they've tried to make it more sort of realistic, make it feel like a real life scenario that could occur. And when you read through it, it kind of makes sense. You know, okay, I can see because of this, and that's in real life it'd be like this. But Deadzone's just quicker.
Yeah, so it does make sense in the abstract, but when you get it on the board, it's like, well, I'm not quite sure now.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure I understand it. So yeah, I think Deadzone is simpler. So I think that pretty much covers all of the things. I think Kill Team, the missions, especially if you get some of the add-on packs, like the Octarius box, the missions are more interesting than this has got it's okay, but it's a very slim campaign thing. Whereas but then maybe they do extra supplements. I don't actually know whether they do extra supplements for this.
But also one downside to all the extras that Kill Team bring out and that you can get is that again it's another set of rules, because you then got to remember specific mission rules on top of your fighters rules on top of all the other stuff as well.
And you have in Deadzone you have access to all the rules for the other opponents. It's not just like, well, actually I fancy playing a different army now, I've got to go and buy a new book. If you're playing somebody you've never seen their army before, you've got no idea what it is, and they've got the books, and it's a bit rude, well not rude, but you feel a bit kind of like, well, can I have a look through the book to see?
And some people are like, no, you can't touch it, I'll hold it open.
If you're serious about it playing and you want to look, you can actually gen up on everybody's army list here. If you want to.
If you really want to bone up beforehand on what your opponent's got or what they could be bringing, you could do that. So there you go. There is our random ramblings of the pros and cons of both games to try and give you some idea of how they compare, how they're similar, and how they're different.
Yes, and I was going to sum it up. I might compare them to cars. This one, is like your sports car,
Porsche. Your Lamborghini, your standard Lamborghini with all the nice trimmings.
It's expensive.
Yep.
But it looks great.
Yep.
But it's not terribly practical.
No.
And perhaps there are times when you wish you hadn't bought it.
Yep.
Deadzone is your forward focus.
Yeah.
It does what it needs.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look as good as other cars out there. But you can do your shopping in it. Actually, you can't do your shopping in Deadzone.
No. You can fit your kids in the back.
Yeah.
You can get all your shopping in the boot. You know you're not going to have to worry if you park it somewhere that someone's going to whack it with their door when they open their car or anything like that. It's solid, it's dependable, it's nice and easy and quick.
Yeah, it does what it needs to do.
Now, ironically, we have said that this is your Ferrari or your Lamborghini because it's more expensive, and actually that's the more expensive box. But in order to play this to the same level as Deadzone,
He makes a good point.
You're going to have to buy more stuff.
Yeah.
So if you want to play other teams, you have to buy the compendium, and that's 30 quid. Yeah. So already your 50 or 60 quid has gone up to 80 or 90 quid, and then you're going to have to buy other terrain because you are going to need that, and there's another possibly 40, 50 quid easily on top of that. And the models in general cost more here than they do over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think that this one is the better game.
But this is very pretty.
Yeah, and that's the rub.
And that's it.
That's the eternal rub, and why GW tend to do so well, because their games look so great.
They do.
But I think if I was going to play one of these, if I'm going to have to play one of these regularly, I think I'd probably choose Deadzone.
And I'd love to pick Kill Team because of how it looks and because I'm all about the GW aesthetic and stuff like that. But when it comes to the rule side of things, I'd either have to play this in the ultra simple version that we played, or I'd pick Deadzone rules because they are just better.
Yeah, I have to say the best of both worlds would be being able to change the GW models to fit the Deadzone rules.
And you probably could, with some minor headaches, you probably could just take the Kill Team models and make Deadzone teams out of them and stuff like that. So
so there you go. That is our pros and cons of Deadzone versus Kill Team. I say for me, Deadzone edges it.
Me, I still like the pretty, but I mean, the other thing, of course, is that GW's aesthetic isn't for everybody.
No, that's
and some people do prefer the Deadzone aesthetic, and if that's the case, and you like a simple game as well, then you can't go wrong with this.
Then Deadzone be the winner.
You do indeed. Hope you enjoyed that and hope it was useful for you. If you do have any questions, do stick them in the comments below.
Absolutely, and if you are new to the channel, come along because you happen to look for Deadzone or something, then please do like and subscribe. Stick a comment in, like Pete says. We do our best to reply. We like a chat. So we'll probably see you again soon.
And also don't forget to ring the bell so you can see all the new content as it comes out from us.
Absolutely. So we'll see you soon on the Age of Sigmar.